Hey everybody, welcome to the next edition of Hubitat Live. My name is Pete Borchers. I'm your host for this evening. Glad you could make it here. Sorry about the original stream that we messed up. Apparently there's a big go live button that you shouldn't press until you're actually ready to go live. So, lesson learned, we'll not do that again. But glad you could make it here. I know there's other stuff going on. There's a baseball game you might want to watch. Washington is crushing them, so don't worry about that. And there's the debate that they're going to have 1,000 of those, so you can check that later. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we are talking about presence sensors. We're going to talk about modes, and we're going to talk about mode manager. And we've got the entire crew here today. We've got Bruce, and we've got Chuck, and we've got Mike. Thanks for coming, guys.
Hello.
Hello. Hey.
All right. So we got a lot to talk about. People are already lined up. We've got Ulysses, John, David, John, JRH1194, all ready to get questions answered. But let's start talking. Mike, I know you would love to talk about presence sensors and how to use those in your life. So what do you say, Mike? Let's talk about presence sensors. How
Jesus, Pete, we decided that I wasn't going to talk about that and I was going to answer questions tonight.
Oh, that's right. We did decide that.
But you're present, Mike. You're present. You got to talk
present.
about it.
So that's
I know, but the battery's dead. It doesn't work.
I'm a great host. As you're all learning, as I've already made technical.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
I'll answer questions about them, but I'm really not in a position to, dig them out. They're all in the car, or they're, buried somewhere. Or like I said, this one here doesn't have a battery in it, so.
Right. Well, here's the deal. Number one, I would like to know just what are some general overall best practices for presence sensors? What types of, apps would I want to use it in? What types of automations would I want to use it in? And maybe just give a types of, I know we have our app that you can use it for. Thank you, Mike. I see that. But like what, and I know we're talking about modes in that. So maybe Bruce, can you help me out? When would I want to use presence sensors?
All right, I'll give you my 2-minute speech on it.
Okay.
First of all, don't ever use a presence sensor to unlock anything.
Or open doors.
Open doors, unlock things, open your garage door. It's also not a good idea.
See, I'll explain it sounds like a great idea to me. So why would I
know
want to do that?
Because if for some reason it doesn't work, you've either left your garage door open or your front door unlocked or something along those lines. Opening it, yeah, you might try that. It depends on which presence sensor you're using, whether it opens quick enough. I don't do it that way because different ones have different response times. And to be honest with you, I don't like sitting in front of my garage door waiting for it to open when I can just reach up and push that little button that's on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, generally they're great for changing modes, which Bruce will talk about in a second here, turning all your lights off when you go away, or in my case, I have a special rule. Stepdaughter's got a presence sensor in her truck, and so when she leaves, her room gets turned off completely. It has nothing to do with modes, but basically she's part here for 1 week and at her dad's for 1 week, so her room gets shut off because she never turns the lights off.
Mm-hmm.
So they're great for stuff like that where it's not, you want it to happen, but it's not absolutely time critical, if that makes any sense. In other words, if your geofence radius is a little bit different or whatever, set back your heat, change modes, do stuff like that. They're great for that.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of geofence radius would you recommend if I was setting up a presence device?
Well, you actually just want to play around with it and find out where they work. But I set up a pretty big one.
Okay.
I think mine's like 1,000 feet or something like that, because I don't like I said, I don't use it to unlock doors,
right,
or anything like that. So,
okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Chuck, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree that it makes sense for perhaps turning off some lights when you leave, make sure the doors are closed and locked. But I get very nervous about having doors unlock automatically or garage doors open. I personally live on a fairly busy street, so I would never want to have my garage just randomly open as people are driving by.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So
I mean, you could take. Unfortunately, this is a Lowe's Iris button controller that's no longer made. But you could take one of these things, which actually can work as a presence sensor. They're not that great as a presence sensor, but you see it's got 4 buttons on it. It's got a nice little key loop on it, so you could assign any number of these buttons that you probably want to get your marker out, figure out what they are. But you could assign these to unlock a door or open your garage door. That's a safe use for one of these button controllers because you're in charge of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah,
I will say though that some people have created like multi ways of sensing that you're home. So they'll have one of these tags plus your phone plus the router plus motion, and if all of those are true, then you're home versus you're away, and all of those have to be present in order for some kind of action to occur.
Sure. So that's a little safeguard, so you're not gonna. Yeah, right. That makes a lot of sense. So now with the presence sensors, I know a lot of people use that to shift into the modes, as you will. So Bruce, tell me a little bit about modes. When should I use modes? How do we go about doing that?
Okay, well, let's spend a little bit of time talking about modes. Modes is one of the first times in using a Hubitat to automate your home that you're going to be dealing with something that's completely abstract. Modes don't exist other than as a state that's maintained in the hub. And it's how you use it is sort of arbitrary since it is abstract, but I'm going to describe the way I use them and the way we kind of recommend using them because they can be very useful, but you can also be very confusing. So I'm going to share my screen and show you how modes work and what you can use them for.
Great.
So
the magic button.
I'm trying to here. Well, I just reloaded my OS and it's not going to let me do this.
You have a crufty engineering build going on over there, Bruce?
Oh yeah,
Do you have a piece of, you can draw on a piece of paper maybe and hold it in front of the camera?
Yeah, we'll see. Hang on. Let's see if it'll let me do it now. I should have. There we go. Okay. Boom. There we go. Is that working?
Yep.
All right. So here we are in settings. This is a new hub I just set up today, or actually I changed it so it would act like it's a new hub. And so here in settings, you can see location and modes. We go there, and location is where your home is all set up. And this one's wrong. I don't actually live next to Blue Sushi. Now here's modes.
It's too bad.
And the hub comes with 4 predefined modes, which are day, evening, night, and away. You can change these names if you don't like it. You can call it home, evening, night, and away. You can delete them. You can also add new modes. But for today's purposes, we're just going to stick with the way it started with day, evening, night, and away. Well, what does this mean? Well, at the moment, it doesn't mean anything at all. The current mode is day mode. If we could change it, we could make it be evening mode, but I'm going to leave it at day. It'll change on its own at some point after we set this stuff up.
So Bruce, what you're saying right now is that it doesn't do anything until you tell it to do something with that mode, correct?
Right. The hub is just born with these modes and they aren't doing anything. And like I say, we're going to set it up to make it do something. So I just wanted to show you where they live in settings, and you can define new ones here, change names, delete them. You can have the modes however you want. We do suggest that you don't change the name of a way because it is used in some apps to have a special meaning. And we'll talk about that special meaning and what does a way mean and what's it good for. Now let's go over to apps and how do we set this up so that modes will be useful and actually do something. So we're going to go to a built-in app called Mode Manager, and we'll install it. Here we go. So Mode Manager, this is a little app that will automatically set your modes for you based on different things that might happen in your system. The most common way to set modes is either based on time of day or on presence. And we'll talk about both of those. It's possible to set them up so that they're different on each day of the week. That may make sense depending on your lifestyle. You may have a Monday through Friday setting and a Saturday, Sunday setting. For now, we're going to leave that off and just set them up without that added complexity. So we're going to set the modes based on the time of day. And here we've got the 3 modes, day, evening, and night. We're going to set those up so it automatically switches to these modes. So we want to use a certain time for day, and I'm going to suggest that you start it at sunrise. So day is going to start at sunrise. We'll start evening at sunset. And then we'll start night mode. I'm going to pick a relatively late time to start night mode, and I'm going to say let's do 11:30 p.m. and I'll talk more about that in a minute. All right, so I've got these 3 modes set up: sunrise, sunset, and 11:30 p.m. And you can see here's the summary. Now, what does this mean? Modes to ignore time changes, away. Well, I guess we better talk about away mode.
Please.
Away mode is going to be the mode we want the system to be in when no one is home. So to know when no one's home, we're going to have to use presence. So we're going to use presence to do that. I've only set up on one presence on this system, which is my presence. If I had more presence sensors, I could select them here. I would want to select all the ones that are relevant to mean nobody's home. So if I had my wife, then we'd set. So we're going to use this when sensors leave or arrive. We want to use time settings for return. Select presence sensors for setting away mode. Okay, when people leave. All right, so if everyone leaves, if everybody goes away, we're going to set it to away mode. So now we have a system that'll set each of the 4 modes: day, evening, and night based on time of day, and away when I leave. Now let's go back into this for a second and say, well, let's go back to the other one first. I want to explain what this modes to ignore time changes, away mode. Now what that means is we don't want to switch from day to evening if no one's home. We don't want to stop it being in away mode based on what time it is. We want to choose away mode or coming back from away mode based on presence only. So we want to leave that default setting. Select modes to ignore the time changes, away. So in other words, away is sort of special. If everybody's away, then don't automatically cycle through day, evening, and night. Just leave it away. And how do we decide when we come back? Is based on presence. So let's use time settings for return from away. Select presence sensors to use from return from away mode, and we'll use mine. And here, what we want to do is use any sensor that if somebody comes back, it means that we're no longer in away mode. I really should have set up a separate, in fact, I'm going to add another one to show this. Add another presence sensor here. Call it Ellen presence. Ellen's my wife. And this is
a very nice lady, by the way, if you've never met her, folks.
Well, I don't think very many of you have met Ellen, but she is very nice. So, okay. Now we can go back to Mode Manager and we'll refresh this. So we're going to set this to be either of us return and both of us go away is the way this logic's going to work. So use time settings for return from away when any of Bruce or Ellen arrive, and set away when all of us have left. So if we both go away, the system is going to go to away mode. If either of us comes back, it's going to change from away mode, and it's going to use the time settings. In other words, it's going to use these settings here. If we come back during the day, it'll set it. If we come back between sunrise and sunset, it'll set it to day. If we come back between sunset and 11:30, it'll set it to evening. If we come back after 11:30, it would, and before sunrise, it would set it to night. So it's going to automatically get the mode correct when we come back after we've left. So that's why we don't want to mess with these while we're gone. We want to leave them that way while we're gone. So now we've got our modes set up. There's more options here. Set mode with buttons. You know, if we have a button device and we want to use that to indicate that we've gone away. So like Mike had that button device, we could use that instead to indicate away instead of a presence. We could also use a switch to do the same thing, to set any one of the modes. We're not going to need any of that. For a basic setup, this is all we want. This is the basic mode setup. So we're done with Mode Manager. Now let's go back to settings real quick. It's actually after sunset here. I can actually simulate that. If we go here and say Ellen has left and now she's arrived, and now we go back over here to modes and refresh, you'll see, oh, it didn't switch to evening. Maybe it's not evening here yet. Well, we'll set it to,
well, both of you have to leave, right, Bruce?
for it to go to away? Oh, you're right.
Correct.
Oh, let's do that. Good catch. All right, so she's gone. Make me go away. Now, we're away. Now we'll have Ellen come home again, or me come home again, and boom, it set it to evening, which it actually is. It's after sunset here. So you can see now the modes will automatically do what they want, and at 11:30 tonight, it'll switch to night. Now I do one other thing for night mode. Ellen and I each have a Pico remote, a button device on our bedside tables, and whichever one of us is up last, who's going to be the last one to go to sleep, pushes button 5 on that Pico to turn off the last little set of lights that are on and to put the house into away mode, or into night mode. So I'm going to come back into Mode Manager, set modes with buttons, and set night mode with my button device.
You know, that's a really good way to go into night mode, Bruce, because it's one of those things where you can't really easily tell when the whole place is asleep and it's time to go to bed. So we use a Pico for that too.
So here we go. I'm going to use button number 5 on this button device to go into night mode. So now this is actually the normal way that we transition to night mode, is that one of us pushes that button, and that's going to change the house to a night mode. If we both fall asleep and neither of us push the button, it's still going to go to night at 11:30 p.m., which is why I made the night setting relatively late. I could make it even later. It's whatever is going to be definitely after we've gone to bed. And if I need to override this, if I need to not be in this mode during the middle of the night, I'd actually have to go in and either set up another button or something else to change the mode to something else. But we never have had a problem with this. We don't tend to get up in the middle of the night. And if we do get up in the middle of the night, you're going to see that the setting for night mode is fine. So what do you do with modes? Now we've got them all set, but what can you do with them? The main thing you can use modes for, it depends on what. The main thing is going to be control lighting. Although away mode we can use for all sorts of other things as well. We may have all sorts of automations that we don't want to run at all if we're not home. so that we could use away mode as a means not to run them. But let's see, let's go here back to apps and let's set up. Last week we talked about motion lighting, and I made reference to using using motion lighting to set some lights based on the mode. So what we have to do is use settings per mode. We turn that option on. And then when we go into the lights that we're going to turn on, we can set these guys up. We'll turn all three of them on, and we can set different amounts for day, evening, and night. Now, notice I didn't select away, which actually means they won't turn on in away mode. So for daytime, maybe I'll use 95%, and evening, maybe 35. And for night, I'm going to keep it nice and dim at, say, 7%. You'll have to play with these levels to find ones that work for you in the settings in your house. But that's the primary reason I have modes right there, so that the lights, they're going to come on from some motion sensor in some room, are going to come on at a different brightness depending on the time of day. And the time of day is actually going to be reflected in these modes, day, evening, and night. It's not really changing it based on exactly what the time is, but what mode it was in. Let's go back to Mode Manager for a second. And one of the things I skipped over was configure using daily settings. So we can have, if we went in here, we could actually have different times for that. Let's say I want to sleep in on the weekend. So we'll get rid of Saturday and Sunday and set up to use day mode. Let's give us an extra 30 minutes at sunrise plus 30 minutes. And now you can see why I would want to use a mode instead of a time in motion lighting. So day mode is that transition will happen at sunrise during the week, and 30 minutes later on the weekend, which lets me.
That's it? Only 30 minutes, Bruce? Come on, man.
Hey, I'm doing my best here. Oh, we need to go back out here to, I never saved that motion lighting app I set up, so you'd have to start over. Anyway, so you can see the point of using a mode instead of a time. Now, away mode, since if nobody's going to be home, we can use that to disable things, to not run automations, to whatever, so that we're not having things happen when we're away from home. And that's why we would use away mode. So that's it for my brief introduction to modes. And I guess I will stop sharing the screen. Yeah. And we can maybe deal with some questions.
So I have one question for you there, Bruce, on the modes. So you had it set automatically. You can turn it to night mode with a button, or it would switch over at 11:30. If, for example, I have that set up and it's still 11:30, I'm still awake, and it shifts to night mode, is there a way to override that? How would you deal with that situation?
Well, you could have another button that says, change it. You could have set the 11:30 to later. You might not even have it set by a time, only set by a button. Or you could have another button that changes what mode you're in. Instead of button 5 making it night, you could have button 4 that makes it evening.
Sure.
So you just have to do that. Or you could do it on a per app basis. Maybe it's only in a room, some room that you're interested in being up in, and you use a button there to put to have that room's motion lighting do something different instead of following the modes. So you just use another automation to do it.
Gotcha.
So one of the things, let me go back in here one sec, back into this thing. I want to show you one other thing about Mode Manager. So this is a basic, I would call this a basic setup. It doesn't handle that special case that Pete just brought up. This is really sort of a basic setup. If you have special cases, what you're going to want to do is use additional automations to make those happen. Use rule machine, use a button device, use a switch that if you turn on a switch, it does something different. We could have set up a switch here that if you're going to do a mode, it's going to do it to the whole house. So you may not want to change your modes for the whole house. You may want to use a specific automation that's just for the room that you want to change and have it be an exception. So Mode Manager is just going to give you a basic, plain vanilla, this is what we do ordinarily. If you need to do something special, then use a special automation to do it.
Great. So I got one question here that I saw in the feed here, relating to these modes. He says, if I want to use modes in, where'd it go? Basically, he was asking if he has a mode for himself, right? And his wife maybe has a mode for herself. How do you deal with that situation? What's going to happen when you're together? What's going to happen when you're on yourself? Mike says that's a terrible idea. What do you think?
Well, no, it doesn't make sense to do that. Modes are going to apply to your entire system. So you don't want to have his and her modes, because unless you have his and her houses or want to have his and her houses, it's probably not the right thing.
But what
to
about
do.
when he's all by him? He comes home by himself. He wants the temperature turned down, and so just an occasion that he's by himself. Is that just a bad idea?
That's not a mode. I mean,
Okay.
Basically he has a presence device, and these are the exception rules that Bruce was talking about, where if only this person is home, then we do this. But that has nothing to do with the mode. The bottom line is somebody's home, right?
Yep.
Which, in my mind, that basically brings the house alive. When you're away, the house is dead. Those are the two basic constraints.
There's a temptation to try to make modes do really fancy stuff. And in our experience helping users, it's not a good plan. If you want to do fancy stuff, do it in your own automation. Use a global variable and rule machine. Keep track of things somewhere else. And my cardinal rule for home automation is keep it simple, stupid. As soon as you start introducing complexity into your home automation system, you're also going to introduce errors. You're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, and you pay for it with WAF, wife approval factor. So keep it simple, stupid. You won't have as many problems. When you get really skilled and you really know what you're doing, then you can get more sophisticated and create completely complicated rules that do all sorts of fancy stuff. Don't start that way. It's not a good plan. I don't have any complicated rules. My wife's very happy. That's a good combination.
That is good. Or you could just get divorced, right? That would be another option for our reader, right? He could just leave his wife and have his own beautiful automated home.
Don't let home automation, don't go for low WAF. Pay attention to your wife. She lives with you. For a lot of guys, home automation is a hobby. It's a hobby for me. When I first started out, my wife was just all over me about it. Why did the lights not turn on? Why did the lights turn off? Will you quit messing with the house? She doesn't do that anymore. She quit doing that after I switched from Smart Things to Hubitat.
You're like, dang it, I'm going to turn this into a job. And then you can't say anything about it. That's awesome. All right, I got another question here. What's the best presence sensor you can get that's not on a phone? I know, Mike, you held up that little remote that they don't make anymore. Are there any other presence sensors you might recommend?
Well, the SmartThings presence sensor is available. It does work. The battery life on them is horrific, but they do work well. A lot of people put them in their cars, including myself, and attach them to a little AA battery pack, in which case the batteries will last 6-8 months, something like that. But if I was going to use a fob, and I do use fobs in our vehicles, that would be the one that I would get, because it was specifically made as a presence sensor, as opposed to this sort of device, which can be a presence sensor but wasn't specifically designed to. And plus the SmartThings fobs, they actually have a beep function in there, so that if you lose the thing, you can, send a beep to it, strap it around your cat, and annoy it all day long. So
I like that.
I would recommend that fob, the newer SmartThings fobs.
Here's a question from the YouTube chat: is what's the process for requesting new apps? Well, the best way to do it is in the community and just start a topic.
Yeah, there's
what it is you want. Be prepared to explain it. Be prepared to have all sorts of people jump on your case and say, "Wait, you idiot! You can already do that," etc. Have a little patience with the community, and if it's a really good idea, we'll see it, and who knows? Maybe it'll turn into a new app.
Yeah, there's a feature request category specifically for that.
Very nice, very nice. So, what about modes and dashboard? I don't know. This might be springing on you guys. Someone wants to see an example of using modes in the dashboard view? Can someone pull that up, or is that not something you recommend?
Well, no, you can definitely put modes on a dashboard. I don't have a device with me at the moment to demo it, but yes, you can certainly put a mode tile in your dashboard, and you can use your dashboard to set the mode. So that's a way to, instead of using the settings in the web user interface as I showed, you could just pull up a dashboard, tap that tile, and it'll let you select the mode that you want to put the house in, and that's a good way to manually set the mode. I have that in my dashboards and use it once in a blue moon. When I use it is if I screwed up and the house went away and my wife's still home and I need to fix it. But it's a good tile. It works well. I think we're about out of time, Pete.
Yeah, we are. It's 8:32. So, yeah. Well, thanks again, everybody, for watching. I do want to remind everybody, if you want to get a hub or don't have a hub yet, $74.95 right now. Hubitat.com. That's only at our website. So check that out. Great price on the hub. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, watching on YouTube. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Bruce, for coming on, giving some good information. This will be available afterwards if you want to check it out again. We're going to be doing this regularly, so if you have anything you want us to talk about in future shows, please let us know. So again, thanks for everybody. Say goodbye, folks, and we will see you next time.
Great. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.